welcome. Today I have Christian Georgiadis of AX Creative. Welcome, Christian. Thanks for jumping on board and recording an episode.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you letting me join your podcast.
Oh, happy to have you. I'm sure it'll be a great one. Would you mind introducing yourself to the guests and letting everyone know a bit of background about yourself and who you are?
My name is Christian. My background is in creative work. So I started off as a videographer, went into photography, and then got into the marketing space. I run a creative agency called AX Creative. AX Creative pretty much specializes in scaling businesses through creative work. So we use unique creative work like graphics, videos, photos. We create a system and then implement it in people's businesses to help scale their sales essentially and bring in more customers. We do a lot more than that. We're a full service digital agency, so we pretty much cover anything from like billboard advertising, communications, even like outsourcing, recruiting. So we're pretty across everything, which is why it's so hard to explain some of these things. And I have a little bit of a background in technology as well. So I've worked with a few digital wallet companies and AI consulting companies as well.
It's quite a variety there. So in the sort of marketing space where you're scaling up, is that more designing the marketing strategy and plans, or is it more supporting and implementing?
We focus on two major things. First is the strategy side. So we audit a company first. We understand their pain points. So obviously we take our clients through a discovery process. We workshop with them first, understand their business, and then we put it into implementation so that we've got two sides of it. Most businesses that we take on board are generally startups, so they do need both sides. But some clients think they might just need the execution side, which is maybe just running digital ads. But you usually find that brands aren't really refined these days. They think they're refined, they think they've got everything, but they don't. And they only realize that once you actually sit down with them and workshop with them.
Do you find that those brands or businesses think they understand their customer or what the customers want, but then it's completely opposite? I think that's a common thing that I've noticed.
Absolutely. Like, I think like marketing it's so broad and it's really endless. And it's like, where do you start? Now, do you need a proper like marketing strategy to, make a lot of money or, increase your revenue? Not really, not necessarily. But if you have a better understanding of your audience and your customers, 100% you can plan to get there a lot sooner. Like a lot of the clients that I work with, they don't have any processes. They're kind of just like, oh yeah, jump on board, and then this is who we're targeting, get us sales. And I'm like, nah, because our job as like marketers is, you can sort of position it as like a business consultant, right? You come in the business, you need to invest, you need to understand their business, and each step of their process, you need to adapt to them first. Once you adapt to them, then you understand, okay, this is what your business needs. And these could be like multiple small things. It could be 100 small things that need fixing before you can get to those big things. And those big things might be the implementation of ads, for example. But clients don't understand that. A lot of clients, they just think, oh yeah, chuck on some ads, bring in some revenue. Nah, it's got nothing to do with that. It's actually the stages of the process first before you even get to that point.
And does that really cover more? But I'm not just understanding your customer, but understanding the value you're deriving probably, or the value you're proposing that you'll deliver?
Yeah, it's quite hard when it comes to the value. Like, it really depends on your clients too. I find that a lot of smaller businesses don't really understand the value of marketing, because there's a commonly, like, it's very common, and I'm sure you've heard this before, like across all marketing businesses or agencies in general, we've got a bad name now, and it's mainly because there's all these companies that came into play that were like, oh, we'll charge you $1,000 a month and we'll scale your ads. You'll make 6 figures a month guaranteed. Like all these people started guaranteeing these results, but the reality is like you may have done that with one client, but you're not going to do it 10 times over. You might have built that recipe for that client only. The recipe changes over time. You have, like, for us, it's like we have one system that we sort of follow for every single company we work with. But then every company that we work with, we need to adapt to them, like I said. So coming back to like the agency side of things, everyone, we just got extremely bad names. So now, like when we try and approach clients, smaller businesses specifically, they're like, oh, we've worked with 10 agencies. What makes you different? And it's impossible to say like, yeah, we're different because we've got, the sort of these case studies, for example, or we've got this. Like, it doesn't make a difference. So now it's like about, okay, how do we position ourselves to make us sort of, I guess, what's the word for it? Like, how do we stand out now? It's all about standing out. And now there's too much competition. Like, there's competition everywhere. So I'm just focused on people that, want to invest in me, see the value in me, and I want to invest in them. I don't work with everyone anymore. I just work with particular people.
It's good if you can get to that point where you can pick and choose some of your customers rather than just trying to take everyone on board, which is what you probably do at a starting point. I know we did that. But really, you have to be able to work with your clients. It's a relationship. It's not just take my money and do what I say. It's working with them. They're coming to us for expertise. So why not use that expertise? Well, that's what you're paying for.
Yeah. I find that, like, I've worked with a lot of clients. I've probably had about 200 clients in the last 4 years with AX. And these are various industries, not just marketing. And yeah, what I notice is, like, if you don't have a relationship with that client, the majority of the time the work won't go to plan. Some clients are, a little bit arrogant. Some clients think they know better than you. And yes, majority of the time they do know better than you in terms of their company, but they refuse to accept that they have issues and their problems that they need to be fixed. So the clients that do work well are the ones that collaborate with you on your projects. They're hiring you for a reason. They're not like hiring you to have a pissing contest. You know what I mean?
You have to be able to work together and iterate and evolve ideas and provide feedback or another point of view that they haven't seen.
Correct. Yeah. It's all about the collaboration. Like, the clients that you work with on the most and the ones that are the best to work with are the ones that are constantly collaborating with you, constantly throwing you ideas, like extravagant ideas, and saying, okay, let's just do it. Let's spend some money on it. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, cool. Go back to the drawing board. But, we've got clients that are like, they're smaller businesses. I understand, like, there's a lot more, they can't really take as much risks. So you have to be a lot more cautious working with them. But they look at it from like a perspective of, okay, if I'm spending $1,000, I need to make $2,000. If I spend $2,000, I need to make $4,000.
Yep.
But the way that they're not looking at it is like, okay, if I spend $1,000 a month now consistently, in 12 months or 24 months time, that's going to come back tenfold. So the way that we're working now is like, we work collaboratively with clients that understand that. And when they do, it's like sick, like the best relationship you ever have.
Yeah. And is it mostly on the digital ads that you're focusing those strategies on, or is it about content creation and those strategies as well?
Content is super important when it comes to ads, because, I mean, sometimes, like, I'll give you an example. Like, we have an automotive client at the moment. They're essentially like a supplier for four-wheel drive parts, like bull bars, electrical, and they've got 1,000 products on their website. And we focus, like, we've been doing like A/B testing a lot of the time with content. So we're not actually testing the audience. We know what the audience is and, exactly who they are, because we did a little bit of testing at the start with brand awareness ads. What we're actually focused on is the content creation side. Okay, are graphics posts better than a video post? Or, how do we change up? Do we do like AI sort of videos with AI overlays? Something that is different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we go out into the desert, film cars jumping in the air with FPV drones and stuff? Like, what are we doing to sort of make it entertaining? How do we engage more people?
Yep.
What we found is after we did all these videos, the ones that were engaging the most were graphics posts with just simple text on it. And I'm talking the ugliest type of ads you'll ever see, but they were the ones converting the most.
Okay.
So it's but it works for all different types of companies, and it really depends on your audience. Their audience is 40s to 50s, the ones that are converting the majority of the time. But what they thought at the start was our audience is 20s to 30s, because those are usually the young kids that are buying Nissan Patrols and then modifying them. But that's only 1% out of the rest.
Yeah, and they've got tight budgets, not a lot of disposable income at that age.
Correct.
It's an expensive hobby to take up full driving.
But you don't know that until you start actually testing with content and the digital ads as well.
Yeah.
And there's it's not just digital ads, there's various forms of things that you test. SMS marketing, email outreach. There's a lot of different things. Even just educational posts, organic posts, but yeah.
Out of those that you listed, where do you see, in general, probably the most value coming from, or the highest conversions? Is there a baseline that you can see across industries, or is it very different depending on the type of service and the target clientele?
Look, it really depends on the industry that you're working with. But what I find very cost effective and quite effective, depending on the database that you have, is email marketing. Email marketing, SMS marketing can be good, but it can be quite spammy if they haven't opted in for that. Mm-hmm. So if they haven't opted in, then you won't get good results. Email marketing is extremely powerful, especially for e-commerce brands, service-based businesses as well. For you and I, if we have a small bunch of clientele and we're doing newsletters and we're doing updates, man, clients are they love that. Especially if it's more personalized and engage with them too. If you can personalize it, you kill it.
Ours is probably too generic. I don't think we've ever had any feedback on our newsletter.
Yeah, it's because you need to adapt with the clients. It's if you're working with multiple industries, how are you adapting to those industries? And also the people that are on the other end, who is reading it? Yep. Who are the key decision makers? What do they like? So you sort of adjust the campaigns to them. So more personalized style of email really converts. The ad side, it used to be, it was a lot better probably 6 years ago than it is now. Mainly because they implemented all these privacy things that on iOS, and it started blocking all the ads, the results. You couldn't track everything the same way. You can't, the data's not as good as it used to be.
Yep, so there's no retargeting.
Yeah.
Or there's less retargeting.
It's less.
Ability.
Yep. Yeah. But in saying that, in terms of ads, social ads are very low quality. Google ads are top tier in terms of conversions.
Yep.
That's sort of the way it's going.
So with just touching on the content side, with certain brands, probably user-generated content is something that's important. How important do you think that is for a startup, if they're a service-based business? Or we work a lot with tech startups. So if there's SaaS products or a startup that they're going for, is that user-generated content something that's useful? Does that help add that social proof component like reviews and testimonials do?
Yeah. So with user-generated content, there's the thing about startups is that there's no authority. Any business that starts up, there's no authority. So user-generated content is extremely powerful for establishing a brand. If you're getting someone that has like, for example, could be a tech advisor, they've got, 30 years of experience, maybe they work for Amazon or something like that. And, you've got them on board, they talking about the technology that you've built, man, that's going to drive a lot of authority. They're going to be like, okay, this company's actually legit. And that's why a lot of companies, they get influencers and stuff like that to talk about their brand, to believe in it. I mean, they get paid for it anyway.
Yeah.
But, it's also a risk for the people that are doing it, because if the brand's a scam, and I'll give you an example, cryptocurrency is the best thing to talk about in this sense. I used to do blockchain marketing.
Okay.
So I've done it for a metaverse project, and I've also done it for not so good projects that we didn't know about at the time, but we also were in the downfall of them crashing, so not so great. But in the blockchain space, like the way that they drive sales is through authority. Like it's all through user generated content. That's why they get celebrities, influencers on board. They'll pay them, say, 10 grand in Ethereum, and then they'll give them like coins or like NFTs or something like that.
Yep.
And then they have like referral codes. They build a cult following, and you track everything. But it drives so much trust into that brand. So, I mean, blockchain NFTs, like they're not all dead or anything like that, but
most NFTs are.
It's pretty dead. It's a pretty dead space. And I mean, it's pretty bad. But in terms of like I find, what's the best way to put it? It's like authority is driven in so many different ways. Like there's the incremental, like how long your company's existed, how active have you been in the market, how much are you posting, who have you worked with? Like there's that side of authority, and then there's like, okay, if you've got like people that trust you and stuff like that, partnerships, and that's where user generated content really comes into play. But at the same time, like you can't just get like an influencer, for example, and just have them as your one piece of authority. Like you need actual people to talk about, like honest reviews, even if they say that your product's shit or it's got a lot of cons, or like, if your tech's, it's great in various aspects, but it doesn't cover these aspects, and maybe you should add these aspects later on. You need people that are honest. The problem is now is like all these brands are constantly pushing too much positive reviews, and it's not authentic. So even though they build this authority at the start, it kind of just levels out later on, which isn't great. So that's where testimonials come into play, and then it sort of levels it out because testimonials are a lot more honest.
Yeah.
But it really depends on your industry too. So I think like e-commerce brands like still very popular for user-generated content, influencer content, but I think it's kind of getting flushed out now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So from our experience in our industry where we're helping people build apps and systems and software, 99% of our work I can say is probably referral, word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because then you've got that backing from a trusted person saying, yep, I've worked with these people, they're good, go to them. We used to say no one just looks up in the yellow pages when we started, but no one just goes to Google and says, all right, software developer, and then goes and puts a project together that costs you a house. Because we're not dealing in small things either. So a lot of trust needs to be put into the process, and you have to be able to work with the people. You have to be able to like us and work with us for us to be able to work with you. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say 95% of our clients are through referrals as well. And yeah, I mean, the best part about that is like, I mean, same with us. Some of our projects are quite large scale. So it's hard to get clients that are new over the line that don't really understand how we work, what we've done, who we've worked with, and like there's no level of trust there. So you got to build that trust with them. That's why it takes a lot longer. Like that's when you start taking clients out to dinners and lunches and stuff like that. I mean, you got to build that relationship with them. But when you get a referral, it's like that relationship's already there. It's just like, yep, all good. I guess that's a level of authority as well, like a
Yeah.
serious part of authority. And if you're completely relying on referrals, I mean, you'd be killing it. But yeah, I think there's various aspects. Like I go for more of an omni-channel approach when it comes to brands.
Yeah.
It's good to have like, referrals. It's good to have your user generated. It's good to have your marketing. It's good to have your outreach. You need to like have various channels. That way, if something fails, you're not like, oh shit, like what's going on? Oh
You
nah.
need to diversify your
Yeah,
content.
exactly. Like I've been there where like, we haven't got any referrals and I'm like, are we gonna survive the next 6 months?
Yeah, yeah. Or if you're just running like a website and then an algorithm change comes across from Google and then you lose a big chunk of your web traffic. Like these things
Exactly,
happen frequently and they're
exactly right.
completely out of your control. So it does make sense to then diversify and split up your efforts in multiple baskets, as they say.
Yeah.
So if you were starting AX Creative again now, or maybe I'll phrase it, if a startup is coming to you, they're looking at building tech, what's some advice you can share to them to scale? So they've got their MVP ready to go, they're getting started. How can they think about scaling and what sort of approach what advice can you give them?
I guess it's like maybe they're coming to me to scale, but are they really in the position to scale? And like that's sort of how we got to view everything. Like we got to challenge that person that comes to us. A lot of the time, these businesses think that they can scale, or they might have a particular strategy that they want to follow to say, okay, how can we scale in this position? But we got to look at it from like the facts, like how much information do you have in your brand? How much have you established? Like where have you established yourselves? Do you have content? Are you going for more of a team approach in terms of marketing? Like talking more personalized and stuff like that. Are you going for more just a brand approach, just focusing on pushing your services and stuff like that? What is the end objective? Like those are the questions that you sort of ask first before you really okay, I'm going to start scaling a brand. Then it's like, okay, once you understand where they want to be going, what their objectives are, how they want to shape their brand, then you ask about KPIs. Okay, how much money do you want to be earning? Do you want to grow your business to say $10 million? Okay, what do we require to scale a business to $10 million? Well, we need funders, we need investors, we need this, we need that. It could be even PR, for example. Then we say, okay, where's the budget? And that's like, once you get to the budget say, people are like, oh, it's going to cost us 300K to scale. Oh, nah, we can't afford that. Well, then why are you talking about scaling then?
Okay, yeah.
So
They're not in that position. They don't understand the investment required to get to that next level.
exactly. So then we can say, okay, well, we can do it in increments. So instead of you doing it all in one go, we can say over the next 3 years, we're going to be focusing on establishing your brand a lot better, increasing your SEO, increasing your brand presence, and building more authority around your brand. Year 2, we'll be focusing on getting investors on board, sending out pitch decks, getting partnerships. Year 3 is when the scaling happens, and then you break it down with them. You actually sit with them and make them understand. But it's like I said earlier, it's like a long-term investment. It's a collaboration. So these people, they really got to understand how you work and how we work with them too. So, we're there to improve their processes. It's not just like I said, it's not just the execution. It's not just the strategy. It's like we're actually in the business, understanding every single avenue.
It has been part of the marketing team effectively in strategy and then tying those two together to help execute.
Whether they got a marketing team or not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, a lot of companies these days, they can't really afford to have a marketing team, mainly because a senior level marketing person would probably be about 200K a year just for one person. Then you've got to hire assistants and executors and whatever. So it's really big investment. So that's why, companies come to people like us where, we've got 15 staff. I can be on the strategy or I can get someone else to do the strategy. Then we just sort of give it to the team and say, execute it. This is the plan. This is what you need to do every month.
Yeah.
as much more cost effective. Like we'll be working with clients maybe 10 or 20 hours a month, maybe even 30, 40 hours, depends on what they need exactly. But they'll be saving a shit ton of money and they'll be getting better work because we've got more people to spread it across too. We've got more brains on it.
Yep.
So I think that's like the difference between, marketing people in a company and using an agency, for example.
So for those startups that aren't ready to sort of engage with you and they're not at that level to actually scale yet, and they can't get a marketing team or afford probably a budget, what could you suggest for them to start to get some structure in place to be able to help them get to that point?
So like if startups aren't sort of in that position, like what I've done for startups as well is like I consult startups. So I actually sit with them. I give them the advice. I don't do any of the work. I actually just sit and say, okay, let me see everything that you have and we'll break it down first. And once we break it down, I'll tell you how to execute it. And like, I'm not going to say how much I charge or anything like that, but it's a really good, like, they get a bit of an understanding of where they're at first, because a lot of companies that approach a marketing company or even try and do it themselves, they do it wrong a lot of the time, and they actually spend more money and they spend a lot more time trying to do it right by themselves than just like paying someone, say, $1,000 to consult them to help them build that whole structure out and be like, this is exactly what you need for the next 6 to 12 months. This is how you can do it yourself. And these are the tools that you can use to do it yourself. Like there's that option as well. And I seriously, I recommend a lot of people do that. And like I've helped out a lot of friends, not just in the marketing space, but also in like video production, that have started businesses, and like they're like, oh, how do you get clients? And I was like, well, I'll tell you what I did when I started. And it was like something really simple. It was like, I just put outreach messages together and started messaging people on Instagram and LinkedIn. But I was offering like, a free, because the people that I'm talking to a lot of the time, they might be just breaching into the industry, for example. So they're like, how do we get work? How do we build a portfolio? And then I'll give them the steps. Stuff like that. It's like, everyone's, and I'm not going to say I'm like a business coach in any way, shape or form. I'm not like, selling my services, like mentoring courses and stuff like that. It's got nothing to do with that. It's purely just like, I have a level of understanding and a process or processes that I've built for various companies, and I know how to apply them and see it in different businesses. So, yeah.
It's just using that experience that you've gained over the years and setting up that foundation to help someone get from A to B, where B is a scaled up version of where they currently are.
Correct.
And those processes is not just around having that probably consistency in posting content, it's also in internal processes. If something's not systemized, it's not going to scale. And that's something that we see all the time.
It's like, in marketing, it's not just about like brand impact. It's about actually the sales side of things too. How are you going to convert these leads? How are you going to what is that sales process? And I'll tell you now, I've worked with a multi-billion-dollar property company that has quite a small team. They didn't have a marketing team. Their staff is across multiple things in the company. They didn't have anything, no processes, no nothing. Even the sales process, we're getting them leads. They didn't know how to sit and convert the leads straight away. And we sat with them and we said, okay, let us understand how you're currently doing your sales process. And that we found out they'll ringing up these leads 2 days later. And in property industry, if you're ringing leads 2 days later, you've lost them.
Yeah.
It needs to be instant. So we started saying, okay, well, if you're ringing them 2 days later, why is that? Okay, we're too busy doing inspections, blah, blah, blah. Okay, how do we complement that? And we said, let's build a customer journey system. So we built an email automation system that essentially engages customers straight away and gives them the information on the properties after incremental periods. And then after that, we implemented their sales process into that customer journey process. So they would ring the client after like 2 days, and the client would understand everything about that company and what they were selling and what they were offering. So you knew that level of interest straight away, because those touch points were already made.
Yeah, and just a more efficient way of getting that information across than having a phone, calling them back, playing phone tag for a few days, getting back and forwards and trying to explain all that in very short bursts. Yet, so it's a much easier way to do it, and that actually lets you scale.
Correct. So, yeah.
Well, it's been a great chat, Christian. Thank you so much for sharing all that information and just putting things, probably framing things in people's minds that they didn't think about related to the marketing and probably the approach you need to actually get to that level that everyone's dreaming about.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to reach out or find out more about you, how can they do that?
Well, probably our website, axcreative.co, or our email is team@axcreative.co.
Yep.
That's probably the two best ways. Instagram wise, I mean, axcreative.co across all socials, you'll find us. That's it.
Yep. No problem. And then, we'll probably put your LinkedIn as well and share that out. And that's how we got in touch. Thank you, Christian. I really appreciate the chat today and hope you had a great time.
Likewise.
Thank you.